So how did the book first come to you? Had you read much Cormac McCarthy before?
I remember Tim Nelson kept talking to us about Blood Meridian, the impossible
I'd
one.
read Blood Meridian and All the Pretty Horses, I think. The book came to us from Scott Rudin. Scott owned the rights to it, and we read it in Galleys, I think.
Yeah, he sent us the Galleys and thought it would be up our alley.
We had not made a movie with him before, although we'd known him for a long time, since actually he was the head of production at Fox when we made Raising Arizona many years earlier. But anyway, he sent us the Galleys, and I think we both pretty much immediately thought, yeah, this is something we could do.
It was unusual in many ways in his books because they do tend to be much more digressive and voicey.
It actually seemed to me the one book of his that really could be a movie.
It's a chase story, so it's, you know, it's kind of a movie story.
And so it was no surprise that the book actually, I discovered later, started out as a screenplay. So there was something about the plot or the pulpiness of it.
The story is like a classic pulp story in many ways.
Yeah.
And you make a mistake very early on and you just will pay the price for it. And everything kind of goes from there.
Yeah, it's kind
Well,
of
it
pulpy.
could be.
Pulpy and the opposite of pulpy. You know, it's all those monologues, which is weirdly, I mean, that's not a script thing, really. When we were writing the script, we just dumped more and more of the monologues and made more and more of the movie silent.
And a few of the elements of the monologues ended up in scenes, or parts of them ended up being said in this scene or another scene between two people.
I know a lot of people refer to it as a Western, but I read that you thought of it more, and I guess I do, as a crime story.
Yeah, I don't think you really thought about it as a Western exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Unless
did you
I
hear
threw a
me?
couple of horses in it.
It's not a Western when you got skyscrapers and shit.
Right.
Although, I guess you could say, you know, Sam Peckinpah made kind of Westerns with guys in suits. I kind of thought about that with the Steve Root stuff. The guy in the...
Right.
No, yeah, it's closer to a crime story. Or maybe a
Right.
horror movie about getting old or something.
Well, that's true. That's the sort of that's sort of the story it becomes. But the setup is classic crime because you have a suitcase full of money and three characters, and the whole story is built around thinking that they're going to meet, and they never
They circle each other, but they don't meet. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And that was something that early on we thought was, well, we sort of recognized as being weird and interesting.
Yeah, and sort of, I mean, I don't think you ever even have any two of them share the frame. But
Yeah, it's kind of like a farce situation or something. I guess
Door
Josh
slamming.
Josh and Javier get this close to each other. They're separated by like a car's width.
Yeah.
That's about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
But farce is interesting because there is a lot of that because people going into one room and you don't realize they're in the wrong, or you think you're there and going in one room. And there's
Yes.
In the scene where Javier is on one side of the door and shoots out Black into, you know, Josh is on the other side with his shotgun. We have this character who we recruited to introduce some of our movies. Supposedly he was an expert on the cinema. No, he was a film preservationist, Mortimer Young of Forever Young Films, which was a company that had this technology where they could travel through wormholes in space-time from movie to movie and correct flaws in them while they were being made. But Mortimer Young would sometimes get lost.
Is this Les Enfants du Paradis?
Do what now?
I'm sorry, wrong room.
There is surprising amount of comedy in the movie, but it is, to me, still the most shocking. So first I saw the movie when it came out, and then I read the book, is that you had the death of, in some ways, what you might think at the beginning is your main character, the Moss character, and you don't even see it. But that's what happens in the book, too. Yeah, and was that always your approach, is that we're not going to see it?
Well, you know, we thought we could always blame Cormac.
It's in the book.
So speaking of blaming Cormac, we were shooting something out on a long, straight road in West Texas where Javier comes up and he takes his cattle gun out to this guy who's going to kill
Our friend
the cattle
Chip
gunner,
Love.
Chip Love. And this was one of the first shots we set up on the first day of shooting. And I remember Ethan looking at Javier walking down with that cattle gun and saying to me, I'm really glad that we didn't make that up. The kettlebell.
You get no responsibility.
And because Cormac is almost sort of fetishizing certain things, guns, cars, you know, in the book, it's so specific what the car is that they're driving. It's so specific what the gun is. I mean, that's just part of his thing, you know, part of the flavor of what he's doing. I once asked him about something, if it was accurate to the place and the time, and he said, to a gnat's eye, which, you know, was important to him, right?
Grandfather was a lawman, father too. Me and him were sheriffs at the same time, him up in Plano and me out here. I think he's pretty proud of that. I know I was.
I mean, you talked a little bit about moving some of those monologues that are a big part of the book into the dialogue. Did that change Bell for you at all? Just because instead of him expounding, it becomes more of him interacting with someone else?
I mean, there's that little bit of it at the very beginning of the movie.
Right,
He's expounding at the he set him up as an expounding. But I don't think we were thinking it changes the character so much.
It was just pretty much universal across the board. We cut his monologues, and the Javier character does a lot of explaining of himself to characters before he kills them. And, you know, it's the classic evil guy monologuing before he kills you. And, you know, it's the same thing. We found that the more we cut, the better it was.
Loretta tells me you're quitting. How come you're doing that?
I don't know. I feel overmatched.
I was trying to decide if this was Tommy Lee Jones's performance or the move of them from monologue to dialogue, but he seems a little more vulnerable in the movie than in the book, and maybe because he's trying to figure something out with another person rather than declaiming it.
Yeah, there's that, and there's also that he has access to something which is very sympathetic to an audience, you know? I mean, he just embodies that.
He has this gravitas, which I think makes his failure to actually solve anything a surprise to, you know, because you assume he's going to take care of things.
Right.
And
well, that's one of the really interesting things about the book, though, is that he kind of gives up, you know, in a way, as opposed to solving everything and wrapping everything up with a bow.
He's also got all those folds in his face. You can really look at him and get lost there. You can spend a long time looking at the folds in his face.
Yeah. No, it's true. And it seems right. It's so expressive. You have between all three of them, their faces do a lot.
That's true.
I called it Rapanui. Josh Brolin and Tommy and Javier's
They
heads
also
are
have
all
big
huge.
heads, yeah. It's almost a bobblehead situation. You got these big, all this floating around,
square
all
heads.
going like
That's why you
this.
couldn't put them together, all three of them.
Exactly.
I always heard that movie stars should have big heads.
Yeah, well, that's a kind of truism,
And the only other big change I thought from the book, and maybe not really that big, is this long scene with Moss picks up this young girl hitchhiker. They're talking about their philosophies of life.
I think this is just generally true when you're adapting a novel. You do what is interesting to you at that point, and that's what you pursue in the adaptation. It's because you can't do everything.
And I think she's sort of the siren in some ways in the book, and I think the beer girl is sort of a siren too.
Hey, Mr. Sporting Goods.
In the book, your anxiety is that he's gonna cheat with his 14-year-old girl, and it's sort of like a big sort of turn in it.
I got beers in my room.
Oh, I'm waiting on my wife.
Right. You don't need her because you got the beer girl. It's kind of the same thing, and the beer girl does it more economically.
Yeah, keeping him there.
Beer. That's what's coming. I'll bring the ice chest out here. You can stay married.
She was good.
Yeah, she was very good. Played that little part.
Just like the way the sound, her voice sort of rolling across the pool, and then there's a fade.
A lot of people were very irritated by the fact that we didn't show Moss's demise, that it all happens off camera. But actually, I really like the fact that it just ends with that conversation. And then,
It's refusing the catharticness of a big shootout.
Call the police. Llámate la policía.
And then Tommy shows up, the character who's the lawman who basically does nothing.
Nothing. He's always at least 2 steps behind.
Just come out, thinks about things.
There's a really good Dominic, what's his name movie with Gandolfini? Killing Me Softly. Killing Me Softly.
Yeah.
And Gandolfini is the big, hitman they bring in from outside, and he comes in and basically does nothing, sleeps with a prostitute, and then gets again. There's some lesson in dramaturgy there.
It also feels like maybe the point in the movie where we fully move over to Sheriff's point of view, because we do stay with him a lot after that. And you feel his surprise is our surprise, that Moss is already dead. So it really sort of screws with your emotions watching it.
Yeah, there's something good about, wait, can that be? That's not right. It's narratively not right. It's not right.
Right, and you're breaking the rules or something.
Wouldn't think a car'd burn like that.
Yes, sir. We should have brought weenies.
I guess we talk a little bit about the location, because you're back in Texas, a very different part of Texas from Blood Simple. Was the location a big part of it for you?
Yeah, it was actually, in a way. I mean, I remember talking to Tommy, actually, before we first started shooting the movie, and we were...
That's when Tommy started yelling at us.
Well, exactly. We did shoot some of the movie in New Mexico. And he was saying, look, New Mexico's not West Texas.
When we first met Tommy to talk about the movie, we told him we were thinking about shooting in New Mexico, and he said that would be a grave mistake in his irritating Tommy way, irritating both because of the way he says it and because he's right,
Because a lot of what we shot, which sort of establishes the feeling of the movie and the country, we shot around Marfa, Texas.
I know this truck. Belongs to a fella named Moss.
Do you think there's something about the Southwest that's conducive to pulp?
Somehow, obviously, in the DNA of those novels, it does make you want to get that flavor and not fake the flavor. Once we were talking about Cormac, and you said he's like a natural historian.
Yeah, he's a naturalist, right?
He is.
Here's the flora and fauna and the people of this specific
place. It's so
place.
important in the books, and going there felt important. I mean, Tommy was right about that. I think we were always contemplating on shooting some of it anyway in West Texas, but he was right about doing more of it there. It doesn't look like anywhere else, doesn't feel like anywhere else.
But it's also struck me watching it that often crossing the border in noir or pulp is to go into dangerous territory, but in the movie, it's actually the safest place.
Exactly. Yeah, he goes down away from
You get some mariachi, you get the hospital.
Exactly. So we needed a bridge, supposedly, over the Rio Grande at a border crossing. And we built it 400 miles from the border or whatever, near Las Vegas, New Mexico.
Oh my gosh.
And Jess Gonshore, the designer, did this great construct on the top of the freeway overpass with entering Mexico, this whole thing. At one end of it, on the supposedly the U.S. side, there was a gas station. And when the set was done, a woman came into that gas station in a panic, and she said, the bridge to Mexico is right there now, and I live on the other side, and I can't go over there because I'm on parole. She thought, I think, that Mexico had moved up 400 miles to the other side of this fake bridge that we built.
Well, I guess the notion of the border has taken on different connotations in the last few years.
Yes, it's confusing.
That's alarming.
It was alarming.
Was it always going to be 1980 as it is in the book for you? Had you given any thought of bringing it to the present, or?
Oh, no, the book is so much about the beginning of that horrible drug trade.
I hadn't thought about the cartel stuff.
And him being a Vietnam vet and the sort of talking about that to the extent that he still does in the movie, which he does a little bit.
You in the service? No, sir, I'm a veteran.
Now?
Yes, sir, 2 tours.
It seems like you do it lightly, though. Some people seem to watch it and not even quite be sure it's set in 1980 until the Vietnam reference. But maybe it's at motels and things.
Yeah, the motels and the
free HBO.
cars.
It's maybe the only part.
We were very proud of our free HBO. I'm so glad you noticed.
My team, my
We saw one time
That's all we
the
did.
light box. We thought, oh, fuck, it's going to be free HBO.
That's very funny.
If you were born at a certain time, you'll know exactly what that means. There is more about Vietnam in the book, but The book is written in 2005, so he's clearly picking that as a cultural turning point for a reason. But it struck me that the movie, sometimes it feels eerily timeless. Like when they go to that hotel, the old-fashioned hotel, it feels like we move back and forth in time and a kind of more eternal quality as it goes on.
Well, yeah, there isn't a lot of stuff that's brand spanking new, so it's not that kind of thing to orient you.
You also socks?
Just white.
Well, that's all I wear.
Even those stores that they're always buying supplies in feel like you could still go into that store today.
You know, what does he say? White is all I wear.
What is all I wear, the socks? Somebody pointed out to us, that guy, the salesman in the store where he buys his socks, he goes back for the shirt.
You let people come in here without any clothes on?
No, sir. It's unusual.
Somebody pointed out to us in the logic of the story that same
Right.
self-same store was in two different towns.
places. Exactly. But who cares?
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Obviously, we should talk about Sugar, but he goes more rogue in the movie, but he talks a lot more in the book.
Howdy. What's this about?
Step out of that car, please, sir.
What is that?
I need you to step out of that car, sir.
But there's a lot more business calculation to him in the book, and he's described very vaguely as faintly exotic looking.
I think I asked Cormac about this. It was
Yeah.
intentionally ethnically untraceable, you know? And he said, yeah. In fact, I remember in the book, I think the only real physical description of the character is a smell, and which obviously you can't do in a movie.
Smell of vision.
That's not helpful, Cormac.
I had read, and is this true, that Lon Chaney in Todd Browning's London After Midnight was an inspiration for his look? Which is, that's one where he has a top hat and the eyes. No, that must be an internet myth, but.
Yeah.
It makes a larger sense.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's very expressionistic looking, like German expressionism.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
I think that this is right, that what we were trying to figure out what he looks like and what he wears and what his haircut is. There was a tradition on the borders of Mexico of whorehouses, you know, and the Johns would go in there, and after they traditionally, I guess, they would take a snapshot, one picture, they would sell it to the John. And a screenwriter and photographer named Bill Whitliff found all the negatives. So he made a picture book about the Johns and the hookers. And we were going through it, and we saw the clothes and the haircut that we then used for Javier. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
From-
no, we saw a specific picture.
That haircut, and
we
it's from the
fell in
guy who
love.
was in a warehouse on the border there in the 60s.
and was the desire just to make something big about the way he looks, or odd, or off, or, you know?
Yeah, kind of unplaceably awful, queasy making,
Right,
yeah.
He's just a goddamn homicidal lunatic yet, Tom.
I'm not sure he's a lunatic.
Yeah, well, what would you call him?
Yeah, sometimes I think he's pretty much a ghost.
Part of the fascination for, I think, the viewers, that all the characters seem to be fascinated by him too, because there's so many discussions about the nature of him. Like Wells and Carla Jean call him crazy, but Val says that would be too easy. But he thinks maybe more like a ghost, and they're all
Yeah.
trying to.
But that's so much a part of the book, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's this guy supposed to be, the ultimate badass?
In that scene in the hospital with Wells, and Moss says, "What is he, the ultimate badass?" And I was sure that that was your line, but it's in the book.
Yeah.
I was very surprised. But they're all trying to
Yeah.
get their mind around.
Yeah.
He seems to see himself as fate, right? Kind of fate figure.
What is that? The Woody Harrelson character says, I guess I would say he doesn't have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how crazy you are?
You mean the nature of this conversation?
I mean the nature of you.
This is still considered by forensic psychologists as the most accurate portrayal of a psychopath in movies. Yes, it's there was an article about it.
All credit to Cormac.
Number 2 is Peter Lorre in M, so he even beats Peter Lorre. He's described as classic idiopathic psychopath. And I read the part that was really your first choice of something, or...
Yeah, he was. Although the character, you know, he's always driving in his pickup truck and that. And there was a point where Javier said to us, I don't know why you cast me in this part. I can't drive in a hay guns. You know, Javier's one of those actors, I think we thought, we have no idea what he's going to do, but we know he's going to be interesting. That's kind of the hallmark of him as an actor in a way. He's always surprising you.
Right, and his face is so malleable in so many ways. And some of those scenes when he's cleaning his wounds, he almost looks saint-like. There's something kind of way he's able to turn his face around, which feels...
Yeah, or there was, I remember a horrifying moment on the set when he's strangling.
Oh, yeah.
You know, watching what Javier was doing while he was doing that. And going,
I think we all agreed it was a sex thing. It's definitely a sex thing.
Yeah. Like, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Keep
You know how to do this.
Yeah, that's working.
I ain't at liberty to give out no information about our residents.
Where does it work?
Did you not hear me? We can't give out no information.
One of the performances that always strikes me as being memorable is that Kathy Lampkin, who plays the trailer park manager.
She was magnificent.
God.
Yeah.
I mean...
We, the first take of the scene we did, Kathy's side, you know, we don't give out that information. And Joel called cut, and Javier said, I'm in love.
She dominates that scene.
Yeah.
Sugar does not know what to do with her. It's the first time we sit and see
She's the only one who can flummox him. He met his match.
And speaking of hair, she has the only hair that can compete with his.
It's true. He was out haired.
He was out haired.
Josh Brolin had not done much at this point. Was there something in him that felt, because Moss we have to like him right away, I guess feels like one of the most important parts.
It was hard to find the right person for that.
Unlike Tommy and Javier, who we thought we went, oh, okay, yeah, if they'll do it, that's great. That part, we looked forever, and it seemed weird because on the face of it, it's a straightforward thing. And I kept saying to Joel, all we need is a good, clean boy.
But you want something.
And everybody was
but there was something, at least at the point where we were, you know, meeting a lot of actors, which was a certain kind of masculinity that isn't kind of common to actors of that age at that time. And the sort of whole cowboy thing. And Josh grew up in California. You know, he grew up on a ranch, and he's a rider. He just kind of had that in his bones.
Did you buy that gun?
No, I found it.
What'd you get for that thing?
You don't have to know everything, Carla Jean.
I need to know that.
Keep running your mouth like that, I'm gonna take you in the back. I'm gonna screw you.
Big talk.
Just keep it up.
Early on, we got a taped audition that he sent, and Ethan and I looked at it, and after the tape, we weren't interested in Josh. We just thought, who shot that?
Yeah, who lit it?
Who
That was
lit it?
good.
Yeah, who did that? And it turned out Josh was working on this Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino grindhouse thing, and he got Quentin to shoot the audition. We didn't know that.
What are you going to do?
I'm fixing to do something dumber than hell, but I'm going anyways. And if I don't come back, you tell Mom I love her.
Your mother's dead, Llewellyn.
Well, then I'll tell her myself.
So we were like, no, we're not interested in Josh. This is honest to God truth. And he begged to come in person and do the part in the room because we'd said, no, thank you. And he came in and we worked with him a little, reread a scene or something. And I think we both just, after he left, we just went, here's the guy.
You know how this is gonna turn out, don't you?
Nope.
It's, you know, in some ways a recessive performance because there's not swagger to him either. He's just,
Right,
you know.
exactly.
There's the thing, doesn't he talk on the phone to Javier? Javier calls him, right?
Yes.
We asked Josh if he wanted to say something. It was like a 2-word speech. And how unusual is this for an actor? Josh said, no. He was happy to just not do anything.
It did strike me he's sort of like a throwback to like Ralph Meeker or an actor like that. You can believe that he could do all because you spend a lot of time with him doing things.
You know, it's so funny you mention Ralph Meeker because I was just watching Paths of Glory. And in a way, Ralph Meeker is the only actor in that movie who doesn't sort of embarrass himself.
Ralph Meeker is fantastic.
He's, you know, if you look at the movie now, you go, it's a great movie, I think.
Yeah.
But it's got some bad acting in it. But Ralph Meeker is, unless you're like Turturro and you love David Carey or whatever.
Timothy
Carey.
It's acting of a sort.
Yes, it's a different thing. Okay, we're well with that. That's good.
Like with Boland, he even walks like those guys walk. It's sort of an embodied thing. You spend so much time with him doing stuff and figuring stuff out and thinking on camera, which is actually kind of a surprisingly hard thing to do. Like when he's looking and he's trying to figure out with the drug deal. So it does seem like the physical embodiment. Yeah, and it kind of bonds us to him, which feels important, especially because of the surprise of his end, is that we really like him.
Yeah.
We also spent a lot of time with Chigurh figuring things out in his way. It's just like they always felt like at a certain point, all three of them start to double each other. Like one of them takes the milk bottle, then the other one comes to see and picks up the milk bottle.
Well, doubling is so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, it really is.
And it is one of the more times I watched it, the more you see it.
But also it's doubling, but there are three of them, so it doesn't get old.
Well, hell, mister, I'll give you my shirt.
Also struck me this time, and this is when you start to see doubling and everything in it, but Chigurh has to get the shirt from the kids, and earlier Moss has
on
to
the
get,
bridge,
yeah.
Give you $500 for that coat.
Like Shadow of a Doubt.
Yes.
All the doubling in Shadow of a Doubt. It's just so interesting.
Charlie, Uncle Charlie. What's the girl's name?
Charlie.
Charlie.
You also have one of the great dog performances, I think, of all
Yeah, well,
time.
that was a scary dog.
Hard to
That was not a movie dog. That was a scary dog.
Because I didn't know they could swim that fast.
Yeah. Josh had a little agitating toy that he would wave at the dog to show him, I've got your toy. And he would stuff it in his crotch and jump into the river.
Cormac liked that.
Oh, do you?
Yes. It was after he saw the movie, it was he was like, he really liked the dog. It's not in the book.
Along those lines of creating this sort of humming terror, did you always know that there was going to be very little score?
Oh, yeah.
We didn't really know until after we screened a rough cut. And Ethan said, we were thinking about the music, and Ethan said, well, there shouldn't be any music. I think Carter and Skip really came in, and the winds that they put in, all of which are really kind of the score of the movie. When we were really finished with the whole thing, we said to Carter, you know, there's 5 minutes of credits at the end, and could you write some score for the end credits? And he said, in the context of what?
Your favorite tunes from the movie.
Exactly, which is really exactly right. Like the context of what? So he took the ticking clock, the rhythm of the ticking clock, and just built a rhythm thing that led into something very simple, which really was nice.
First of all, the lack of music doesn't cue people to how to feel, which makes people uncomfortable, I think, especially now when there's often wall-to-wall score. It also makes you more attentive to all these other sounds, like the crinkle of a candy bar unwrapping, the transponder beep.
Well, again, that was Skip
Yeah.
bringing what he does to making those sounds part of the story.
And part of it is also Skip and Carter working together. It's not literally true there's no squirrel, although it's almost true. Carter does some drones. There's some very tonal things that kind of blends with Skip's atmospheres.
Yeah, there are scenes in which you can't tell the backgrounds from the tone or a building drone or something like that.
There's a lot of study of the guns in this movie on YouTube because there's
Really?
a fascination that shotguns didn't traditionally have silencers.
No, I'd never heard about it until I read the novel.
Part of what makes Sugar so frightening is this sort of handmade, this sort of doing these, piecing everything together,
Yeah.
like the suppressor,
Yeah.
right? That he's sort of rigged up.
I was surprised when doing the mix when Javier shoots narco guys in the bathroom. All that stuff was really well done. I don't think there was anything out of the ordinary with it in terms of us coming in with a concept or trying to do something radically different. There's also the scene where Moss is in the hotel on the bed. That was fun to do from a sound point of view because you hear him down, the phone ringing at the front desk, but not being answered, and then you hear him coming up and the shadow of the feet underneath the door. That was all fun to do, too, from a sound point of view.
That's part of what you're talking about, the guns playing with the perspective of, shotgun voice and rat-tat-tat voice, and Josh hearing it with the perspective. And everything's a fuss.
You want to change rooms?
No, ma'am. I want to keep my room and get another one.
Another additional?
Yes, ma'am.
I wondered about how you handled people understanding what's going on, because you do, but you're often dealing with identical motel rooms, sometimes 3 at once. In terms of visually, was that like a puzzle to figure out?
It was. I just vaguely remember. I don't know if you remember any of this. She shows him a little map
Of the- right, he
and
picks
that
the-
we thought that would be helpful in terms of logic of it for an audience.
Another really good actor, Margaret Bowman.
Well, you can have the one right next to yours if you want. Number 137, it ain't took.
No, 38 will be fine.
It's got 2 double beds.
I remember literally the most boring day either of us has ever
doing
spent on a set.
vet.
The vet.
Yes.
Shots at
It
the
was
vet
almost
inserts.
surreal spending a whole day just looking at images through a little
The
but
metal
but
vent.
it's also true that the idea that he shoves it in one end and goes around to the room at the back and goes into the vent and can put, I think we felt we have to help the audience understand a little bit what's going on here logistically by drawing something, which was that map that the relationship of the 2 rooms are. I don't know if it works, frankly, but people just don't care. They just go with it.
I can't even remember what we were setting up. I guess he shoots the guys through. Didn't we have Javier go in a room and assess the little divider
Yes,
wall?
because whether or not the buckshot's going to go through it.
Shoot through it.
Yeah. He squeezes it, I think. I think that might have been Javier's idea. I can't remember. Or did he tell me to do it? I can't remember.
Seems like there's great use of the shadows and light under doorways, and in motels, the lights from headlights coming through the windows. I heard Roger Deakins talk about one of the favorite scenes he's ever shot is the big scene where Belle goes back to the motel room, the crime scene, and how frightening it is, where you don't know if he's gonna go through the tape or open the door, because it feels like now we're finally gonna get these 2 together, but...
Yes,
I remember lining the shot up, Tommy going to the door, and he goes, okay, and I go over here, look at the doorknob, oh, evil. And then I turn...
he was talking his way through the beats.
Oh, evil. Turn the knob, go through.
Oh, evil.
Oh, evil.
An actor works.
An actor works. But an actor who understands.
But there's a lot of thresholds in it in that way. It feels like it's sort of, and that becomes sort of, I guess, Big and Bell. Like, is he gonna go into that room?
Right. That's good shit. Cormac is so good. It's like a nightmare. It's like a nightmare.
Yeah, that Solid Hazard line is one that sticks in your head forever. I guess it raises all these questions. It seems like in some ways no good deed goes unpunished in the movie, and all promises are futile, like again and again. Even basic ones, I'll be right back, or you know, like everyone's not sure. I'm not going to hurt you when the guy in the truck, and then, you know.
Don't worry, I ain't gonna hurt you. Need you to drive me on out of here.
But then sometimes another really good actor, Gene Jones, it's a big surprise that a guy doesn't get killed. The guy in the store, the coin flipping thing.
He was great.
Well, look, I need to know what I stand to win.
Everything.
How's that?
You stand to win everything, call it.
And he plays fright, so sustained fright for so long, because that's the first extended talking thing, really the most talking we
it's
get
the most
in
talking.
Sugar, until the Carla Jean scene.
Call it.
No. I ain't gonna call it.
That, I guess, is another big change. Carla Jean pushes back on him more in the movie. And Kelly MacDonald is so great. So she's the only one who refuses his philosophy.
Yeah, that is a little different from the book, actually.
Yeah. Because Carla Jean, we also don't see die.
No.
That feels like maybe a different...
Well, that's just modesty.
Yeah,
It's too awful.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It seems too painful.
It's too painful. She's too nice.
Though you do see him check the bottom of his shoes.
How'd you sleep?
I don't know. Had dreams.
Well, you got time for them now. Anything interesting?
There always is to the party concerned.
We should talk about the ending. Did you know there would be so much discussion about the ending and interpretation? What does it mean? What do the dreams mean?
The monologue is just, it's just a book. I don't think we changed a word. Tommy just did the monologue from the book. But that seems straightforward as can be. I mean, the feeling isn't straightforward, or I don't know what it is, but it's, it's just the book. It's great.
All right, then. Two of them both had my father in them. It's peculiar. I'm older now than he ever was by 20 years. So, in a sense, he's the younger man.
I guess what I so love about, especially the second dream, is it really is a Rorschach of how you view the world, because some people see it as comforting, that your father will be there.
Absolutely.
And I read that Tommy Lee Jones, though he was glad that it was open, that for him it was, but other people see it as death, which is also is by nature,
there's a dark part of it, and also and then I woke up part of it, and then so it's really complicated.
Rode past me and kept on going, never said nothing going by, just rode on past.
But it's beautifully written, and it was beautifully done by Tommy.
Yes.
And
we don't have
want
to
fuck with it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We don't even have to think about it. You just go, okay, we don't need to touch a thing, It's great. Also, Tommy is a huge admirer of Cormac, so there's no way that he's just...
It's not like he doesn't understand the source material or the beauty of the poetry of the source material.
I guess the different actor with a different interpretation would give more portent to it, but in some ways he seems so frightened in it, or fragile.
Tommy always pulls it off. He's like, it's just, I don't know how, but he does.
And in the dream, I knew that he was going on ahead. He's fixing to make a fire somewhere out there, and all that dark, and all that cold. And I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. And then I woke up.
It's the last sort of refusal for catharsis, but I do think in some ways it is catharsis.
I agree with you. I don't think it's... Yes, the Josh thing is denying the catharsis, but it's there at the end of the movie, in my opinion.
He's going to retire for much of the book, but here that retreat in some way feels... That's the cathartic moment, I guess, as we get to it, is that he will not stay in that world any longer. He can't, which feels like a proper ending to it.
Right. Yeah, it's cathartic. You can leave feeling elated, strange as that sounds.
Yeah.
Pity, fear, excited, and purged. These are, we didn't invent this stuff.
No, the Greeks.
This has been going on for a long time.
Yeah, where'd the Greeks get it?
Yeah.
That's
I think they made it up.